And it's a good morning to the Gelding. Gelding, we're back at Flemington headquarters.
Good morning, Professor. Good morning, listeners. Yes, back back at Flemington. As I've said many times on this show, the one I regard as the best track in Australasia, and if not the Southern Hemisphere. On a good four, Professor.
Yeah, and good for Gelding, but the rail's out 8 metres, which is a interesting distance to be out. You usually get 3, 6, 9, 8 metres. Now, is that going to create lanes?
Oh, well, Professor, I think it always creates lanes when the rail's out. Previously, it was out 4 metres, so it goes out another 4 metres. What normally create lanes and what I'm always worried about is how much water track crews put on it. So hopefully with the rain that we got on Thursday, Professor, with a little bit of luck, the track may have been naturally watered this week and not the uneven spread you get when someone does it, by sprinklers. So
Gelding, they wouldn't put more water in one area than the other, would they?
Oh, well, I don't think. Sometimes the wind, I'm not saying they do it deliberately, Professor, but when there's, the hand watering or the sprinkler watering and there's wind around, certain spots there seems to be lanes, Professor. And inside tracks may be off. So, look, I'm just hoping for a more even racing surface. So that's one thing we don't have to worry about, Professor. Because as I've said many times on this show, once we've seen the first 2 races and you can get a pattern developing, if we had have known that pattern at 10 o'clock in the morning, we may change our bets.
Exactly right, Gelding. All right, so there's 9 races on at Flemington today, not 10, only 9. The first is at 12:25. The feature race 7, the Australian Cup, Group 1 weight for age over 2,000 metres, worth $3 million, Gelding, so it's worth getting out of bed for that one.
Yeah, Professor, goes back to my discussion about the Newmarket handicap. The number 1 sprint race in Victoria worth $1.5 million. And last week you have the Golden Mile worth $4 million. The all-age mile or whatever they're calling it now, worth $4 million. The Australian Cup worth $3 million. Tell me why the Newmarket's not worth $3 million, Professor. Why is the Newmarket half the race the Australian Cup is?
Well, what's the Newmarket run over, Gelding?
1,200. Right.
And that's nearly half 2,000 metres, isn't it?
Nearly.
Yeah, so what's nearly half 3 million? 1.5.
But aren't we competing
They're only running half as far, Gelding. That's why it's worth only half as much.
Aren't we competing against the Everest, Professor?
Yes, we are,
like
Gelding.
I like your maths.
Look, Gelding, I agree with you totally. Racing Victoria should sit down and have a hard look at it. There's no doubt that there should be an increase in prize money for that race. But
Newmarket and the Oakley Plate, they're the history races. They're Group 1s for sprinters. The TJ Smith's worth $3 million in a couple of weeks up in Sydney. It hasn't got the tradition that the Newmarket has got. They need to lift their game there, Professor.
They do, Gelding. All right, well, let's lift our game. What are your 2 best bets for today's Flemington races?
Professor, going very, very early in the day, going in race 1, horse number 4, Veriskova, horse, a written tycoon, mare trained by Sydney Alderson down at Cranbourne.
Yeah, that's a trainer we don't talk about regularly, Gelding.
No, we don't. We're not a stable we really follow, Professor. But this horse she seems to set it specially for Flemington, Professor. I think its last 5 runs have all been at Flemington. So, this is a horse that likes a straight. Drawn out in barrier 7. Likes to scoot home. The 1100. Would like it to see it over 1200, but first up form for this horse is 5 starts. First up, only for the 1 win, but 2 seconds, Professor. But at the distance, 4 runs for 2 wins and a second. So, excuse me, Professor. Hoping that we can get away with an early start with Verenskova to be ridden by D. Moore. A good jockey, a very good, competent jockey, who's been on this horse before, knows to set it kind of midfield. Hopefully be making a charge out wide, Professor, and we can get away around about the $3.10, $3.20 mark, Professor. We then go to the main race, the Australian Cup, and geez, I had a look at the field, and as I text you last night, Professor, I think probably one of the worst fields ever assembled for the Australian Cup, worth $3 million. So look, I thought we'd go for the best horse in the field. That's Cascadian, race 7, number 1. The Blue Army Cummings, to be ridden by Ben Mellon, who rode the horse last week in the main race there. The $4 million, I'm just forgetting the name of it, Professor. Mr. Brightside won it. This horse finished second, only beating half a length. If Mr. Brightside was in this field, Professor, I think it would be an even money favourite, if not in the red. We can get Cascadian at round about the 310. So, Professor, I'm hoping Cascadian, the best horse, won't be giving him too much of a start, but can rattle home down the outside. Worried about a couple here. Nonconformist, number 4, Right You Are, which has been scratched, so we don't have to worry about that, Professor. But I'm worried about the New Zealander, number 18, Champanese.
A long way to come for a race, Gelding.
It was, Professor. I did hear they were very upset when they were an emergency after being promised a run. This is a horse that's got good Group 1 form over in New Zealand. We saw last night in the William Reid that the New Zealand Group 1 form's stacking up very well down here. So, look, I might have a little saver on that at round about the $10, Professor. But my 2 bets are race 1, number 4, Verenskova, into race 7, number 1, Cascadian. Any horse that's won $6 million will do us to have a bet on one.
Yeah, Will Gelding. And the race you were thinking of was the All-Star Mile.
The All-Star Mile. Thanks, Professor.
That's
I knew I could count on you.
All right, Gelding. Well, my 2 for today, I'm going a little bit later than yours, but only a little bit. Race 2, the TBV Thoroughbred Stakes. It's a 2-year-old race for fillies, a Group 3. Got to have a bet in the only other group race on the card, Gelding. It's over 1,200 metres, and in that race, Gelding, I like horse 2, Hell Queen, coming out of barrier 7. It's lightly raced, Gelding, only 4 races for 1 win and 3 placings, so it's got a 25% win rate, 100% place rate. It won a 2-year-old maiden at Bendigo by 3.5 lengths, so it's up in class in this race. What I did like, Gelding, that in February at Flemington, it was only beaten a length by Mahaba. Now, Mahaba ran second to Shinzo at Rose Hill in a Group 3 2 weeks ago. And we know what Shinzo did last week in the Golden Slipper. So
exactly, Professor.
So if this horse is a length off a horse that was just beaten by Shinzo, I'm thinking that class might show through in this race.
That's right, Professor. But could Dawn Fraser's sister swim?
Oh, nicely put, Gelding. All right. Blake Shin's in the saddle. He's got a career win rate of 14%. Benny Brisbane, another trainer we don't often talk about from Wangaratta, Gelding.
Yes, a very good up-and-coming trainer, Professor, from up that way.
And in career form over the last 50, Gelding, he's got a 16% win rate over the last 50 races. So that's pretty good.
You don't have to tell me about that, Professor. One of his horses, Cooled, which is in the last today, happened to be dropped the mic the other day.
There you go.
So, yes, we're well aware of the capabilities of Ben Brisbane.
All right. My second selection, Gelding, is race 4, the Bob Hoisted Handicap. It's a listed race over 1,000 metres. In this race, Gelding, I like horse 1, Kalos, coming out of barrier 6. 14 starts for 4 wins and 3 placings, so a 29% win rate, 50% place rate. The Blue Army, Gelding, can't go past that. Second up, it's had 3 starts for a win, so it's had some success. Second up, it won first up at the track last month, at the start of this month, sorry. It beat On the Lead in that race, and I like the way it finished off and hit the line. The Bopper is a big threat in this race, Gelding, but ridden by a jockey who I don't fancy. So I like Benny Mellum. So we're going for Cascadian Gelding has got Cummings and Mellum, and this horse also has Cummings and Mellum. So we're hoping that Benny Mellum can add to his 22% win rate over the last 50. And James Cummings got an 18% win rate over the last 50. So it's $4.60 and $1.70, Gelding. I think it represents value for punters.
Benny Mellum, a good jockey. Notice both horses were previously ridden by Jamie Carr. And Ben Mellum's taken over because of Jamie's injuries, of course. But he's also the partner. So hopefully Jamie Carr can pass on some riding tips to Ben as she recovers. So Kalos, a very, very good horse. As I said off air before to your Professor, very worried about the Bopper down from Sydney that was behind some very good horses last time, and the Jim Buck, but you can't have them all. But very happy with your tip, Professor, around the good each way value of $5 or $6. So I think it's a good
Gelding,
bet.
Yeah, all right, Gelding. So my tips are race 2, horse 2, Hell Queen, and race 4, horse 1, Kalos. The Professor's Parlay, which was very successful last week, Gelding. Both the win parlay and the place parlay up.
Are people contacting you and saying, Gelding? How are you doing?
No, they're not, Gelding.
You sure?
Yeah,
well, they
sure.
should be. They'd be.
Well, you do, but that's about the extent of it.
Well, you know why? Because we get to see the profits of it, Professor.
We do, Gelding. We do.
Which enables us to make small investments, Professor.
It does, Gelding. So your tip of the race horse last week, the agreed bet between you and I, Animo saluted in a tremendous way to start off the parlay. Canterbury Bulldogs just got over the line with West Tigers. So the NRL leg got up, and then we were waiting on Arsenal versus Crystal Palace, waiting with bated breath, and Arsenal came home 4-1. So it wasn't even close, Gelding.
Wasn't even close. And Professor, was I worrying for nothing?
Oh, no, I don't think you're ever worrying for nothing, Gelding. Once the first 2 legs got up, I had more concern. Once the first 2 legs got up, I got more worried. So I was frantically looking at the. Well, last Sunday, Gelding, opened my eyes at about 6 a.m. and immediately went to the phone to see what the result was.
Oh, beautiful.
So anyway, Gelding, the win parlay last week paid $10. The place parlay paid $17.50. So we pocketed $17.50 for our selections last week, which is a very good return, Gelding.
When you're backing a champion like Animo, I wish he was running again today so we could have had him. We're a little bit worried about our bet with Cascadian because, maybe giving him a big start with 200 metres to go, but hopefully the better horse can win. But we try to get the horse leg up, Professor. Sometimes people may say, oh, that's easy to pick that. But let me tell you, there's been plenty of things that are easy to pick that haven't won, Professor. So
exactly
we're looking for a certainty to get that first leg up and then pray for the other sports. And I reckon the formula at the moment's working, Professor. Dividends may be small, but I'd rather have a small dividend than a piece of paper.
Well, it's better to get the return, isn't it, Gelding?
Exactly.
All right, Gelding. So today's Professor's Parlay, the agreed bet of the day is in the Australia Cup, race 7, horse 1, Cascadian. And let's parlay that into, no, Gelding, not the EPL, because the Premier League's on holidays this week.
I breathe. I was saying, could it be 2 weeks in a row?
No, it's not 2 weeks in a row. All right, Gelding. So we'll parlay that into the AFL. We're going for Sydney at home to beat Hawthorn. Sydney, very good last week. They're third with a percentage of 180%. To beat Hawthorn, who are on the bottom of the ladder, absolute last with a terrible percentage of 52.4. So that really reflects how they went. And I think most pundits have tipped Hawthorn to be at the foot of the ladder, and it doesn't look like they'll be wrong. And we'll parlay that into, and just a word for punters, Gelding, they've got to get on very soon because this match starts in about 20 minutes' time. So as soon as we've finished today's That's Racing, I'll be making sure that the parlays are on. NBA, Memphis Grizzlies to beat the Houston Suns. Memphis Grizzlies haven't really put a foot wrong this season. They're second in the Western Conference. They've won 45 of 72 games, 62.5% win rate. Houston Suns, absolute stone motherless last in the West Conference. They've only won 18 games for the season, a terrible win rate of 24%. If I look at the points for and against, Memphis Grizzlies average 116 for and 112 against. Houston Suns 110 for, 118 against. So I like those odds. They've met 3 times already this year, Gelding. The Memphis Grizzlies have taken each contest.
I don't mind you with the NBA, Professor. You know you're American sports, and you had a sensational round with the NFL, and I'm quietly confident that may repeat itself in the NBA.
All right, Gelding, I think it will too today. The win parlay currently showing 4-1, which is an excellent return. The place parlay showing 2-1.
A nice bet, Professor. And I think people who would be following it, maybe David from Mordialloc, would be having a very good run on the successful Professor's Parlay.
Yeah, I think so, Gelding. That's a great segue into me talking about tomorrow. Sportsfan Radio returns with you, the judge, Cooter, Paul Daligan, and myself. Interesting.
Everyone playing at home, are they, Professor?
Yeah.
Or some of us wearing the white shorts?
No, I think everybody's playing at home, Gelding.
Okay, the black short day.
As currently advised, everybody's playing at home.
Okay.
That might be a special question. That might be a special question you'll have for the giraffe tomorrow, Gelding.
Yes, we'll ask whether everyone's in the black shorts.
All right, Gelding. Well, there's plenty to talk about on Sportsfan Radio tomorrow, and I'm specifically interested in talking to Paul Daligan about how he's seen the first 3 rounds of the NRL pan out. The Dolphins unlucky last night, went for a kick right at the end of the game, and it came unstuck and ended up with a try at the other end of the Broncos. So,
has there been a better start? Sorry, Professor. Has there been a better start with the new franchise than the Dolphins?
Well, that'll be a question without notice for Paul tomorrow, won't
I
it?
reckon that may be one for him.
Well, another question I've got for him is, do you go for that sort of kick at the end of the game where if it comes unstuck, or do you keep possession and try and run it in?
Yeah, it will be interesting.
The worst thing that can happen is scores a level, Gelding.
Yeah, I was flicking between both games last night, Professor, as I was on Thursday night. So makes it very hard, doesn't it, for us sports fans?
Yeah, I've got arthritis of the finger
of the remote control
button. Exactly, Gelding. All right. Well, what we'd ask is that viewers who have enjoyed the show, please like the program. Just below us, there are two buttons, like and subscribe. We ask you to do that. It keeps us on the air. And all we can say until next Saturday, Gelding, is good luck.
And good punting.